If you're anything like me, you spend a lot of time thinking about A Song of Ice and Fire. Perhaps too much. Perhaps you make multiple video essays on what's supposed to be your throwaway YouTube channel about fictional dragon people. Perhaps you own the sword Blackfire and flourish it sometimes absent-mindedly. Maybe you tell your fiancée that you like the color of a dress for engagement photos purely because it makes her look like the Lady Melisandre. But that's purely hypothetical. If you have that same affliction, a topic you often think about is the forthcoming book, The Winds of Winter, the 6th installment in the series. When is it coming out, you ask yourself? Will the series ever be finished? Has the book already come out, but I've experienced a complete psychotic break while waiting, leading me to think it hasn't? What if I told you that it doesn't matter? George R.R. Martin has written a lot more than just dragon novels, and much like a crippling alcoholic trying to get his fix by eating hand sanitizer after running out of spirits, you could get more George Martin off the streets and into your bloodstream by looking a little deeper. I took that plunge this past spring and discovered a whole new world of literary magic. Actually, several. But the one that occupies the most space in my brain since I've read it is a little book called Fevre. Next to the Westeros books, Fevre is easily the best thing George has written in my opinion. Though, there are some of his short stories that do hold a fond place in my heart, with Sand Kings and The Way of Cross and Dragon being personal favorites. Dying of the Light has a lot of interesting ideas, but is very much his first novel, and thus there are problems I have with it that are maybe better served in a video of its own. Still worth a read in my opinion though. A lot of Martin's early short stories are quite clearly delineated between moody introspective pieces and dark comedies, with something like Songs for Leah being the former and Sand Kings the latter, which is very much in touch with the golden age of sci-fi and how short stories were written back then. The themes are often either deeply satirical or about brief moments of beauty in the vast, uncaring cosmos. I think Fevre benefits from being one of the most sincere, romantic, in the literary sense, and focused efforts he's ever produced. It's very clearly George writes a gothic horror novel, and thus comes with the same homages, subversions, and personal bits of flavor that he brings when writing fantasy or sci-fi. Unlike the Dragon books, it's laser-focused on just a few perspectives, which I think benefits it. Spoilers are abound ahead, so if you would like to go read it now, free of prior knowledge, please do so. This video is waiting for you, and if you've made it through A Song of Ice and Fire, this will be a brisk read in comparison. I won't go over the plot beat by beat, but I won't shy away from discussing it either. Good? Okay. Fevre is a vampire novel, or rather, George's answer to the vampire novel. Set in the decades directly preceding the American Civil War and then just after, it's often called something to the effect of Bram Stoker meets Mark Twain, which is quite apt. A large portion of the novel isn't even directly concerned with the supernatural conflict, instead involving the hopes and dreams of our primary protagonist Abner Marsh, a grizzled steamship captain who dreams of capturing immortality in the riverboat trade. Needing funding to build the ship of his wildest fantasies, he becomes business partners with the enigmatic Joshua York, a conspicuously pale, white-haired, handsome aristocrat, who is definitely not a vampire, nor George basing a Byronic hero on Elric of Melniboné. Much like the works of Twain, Fevre dwells heavily on the romanticism of life as part of a steamship crew traveling up and down the Mississippi, presenting the American legend of a noble ship captain sailing for adventure and profit the same way George would both revel in and deconstruct knighthood in A Song of Ice and Fire. There are portions of this book that very much read as like George's book report on steamships and how they function, but I find it entirely charming and quite enthralling. But I am a grad student in history, so maybe that's to be expected. Abner is very much a predecessor to Davos, a ship captain with a heart of gold, in a dynamic duo with a dark-souled nobleman. Just like Davos seeks to balance his personal honor and morality with winning the war for Stannis, Abner balances his chivalric dreams with profit and his own moral questions, largely stemming from slavery as he goes from state to state just before the Civil War. While he has underlying good morals, treating the black members of his crew with the same respect and decency he would with anyone else, he goes on a journey of rejecting the rotten values of American society, even joining the Underground Railroad, fully becoming Davos, aka a smuggler for a good cause. The riverboat lifestyle is inherently tied into the wealthy landowning class, just as knighthood is tied to nobility in Ice and Fire. And much as we see characters in Westeros rage against the moral flaws of their society, Abner rejects the morality of a society that allows slavery. The antebellum South had a genteel exterior, barely masking the disgusting realities that built it, and Fever Dream explores this in full, which is funnily enough a topic that William Faulkner, minus the vampires, often explored in his books, and of course, he famously coined the phrase, human heart in conflict with itself. To George, and therefore Abner, his quintessential hero in this story, the steamboat captain isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle, ostensibly becoming a questing heroic knight, be it moving cargo and people, or fighting vampires. Oh yeah, the vampires. Joshua York is the Daenerys of vampires. That's basically his character. I say this not to diminish him, he's very compelling, and basically a prototype of the Dany we know and love. Just like the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, he comes from a heritage entrenched in human suffering, with the literal blood-drinking vampiric race echoing the horrors that the Valyrian dragon riders have inflicted on the world of Ice and Fire. Just like Dany as well, he rejects this past and works for a brighter future, desiring harmony between his race and humans. Vampirism in this way is presented in one sense as very much a sci-fi alien race interacting with humans, and Joshua York wants to go the Starfleet route in terms of cooperation between sentient beings, even inventing a potion that basically synthesizes the effect of vampiric feeding to avoid having to harm humans. Standing in contrast to Joshua is Daemon Julian. Yes, Daemon, albeit spelled differently, who I can only describe as racist Dracula Euron Greyjoy. The way he uses humans as cattle directly parallels slavery, as although most vampires justify drinking blood from humans as a necessity, much like how there are economic justifications of slavery sidestepping the moral aspects, Daemon doesn't even make that pretense. He believes that it is his right as a higher being to use humans for whatever he wants. And he doesn't even crave blood at this point, as he's gotten way too fucking old even by vampire standards. He's a nihilist vampire supremacist, and an animal that badly needs to be put down. The final note I'll make is how George tells the story of the Chosen One and their stalwart companion. Tolkien based his version on the relationship between an enlisted Batman and an officer in the First World War, creating our beloved Sam and Frodo. George has of course played with this in Ice and Fire, giving Jon his own Sam and Stannis his Davos. Abner and Joshua are an earlier take on this dynamic, and perhaps the most wholesome. It even has the quasi-homoerotic elements you get from Sam and Frodo, even if that wasn't Tolkien's authorial intent, because man does George like to describe how hot his twin characters are. But on a serious note, Abner and Joshua are just two good dudes who bring the best out of each other, and their brotherhood bridging an interspecies gap makes for a hell yeah reading experience. Much like Samwise deciding to take on Shelob to save Frodo, without much thought, Abner decides to try and blow the head off of vampires with a cartoonishly large gun, a quintessential American hero. They are two men who have what the other lack, and they work together harmoniously, and even if they clash at times, ultimately that clashing causes them to grow. While Fever Dream may not satiate your red thirst for dragon books in the way I initially suggested, it's well worth a read. Grandpappy George is quite sad these days. Make him happy and read some of his other works.